having to master something is a very bitter reality. Perhaps it is easier now than ever to just accept that, maybe the best life that you can get is just one that's Instagrammable. Welcome to the Stories We Tell Ourselves, a podcast created and hosted by Adrian Lai and Carlson Hugh. Join us in discovering the stories behind our thoughts, actions, and identities as we try to answer not just the whats and hows, but most importantly, the whys in life.
I'm Carlson Hugh. On today's show, I'll be talking to Adrian Lai about deep work, mastery, and how to be an expert.
Okay, welcome to the Stories We Tell Ourselves podcast. My name is Adrian.
Hello, I'm Carlson.
And today we are going to explore some uncharted waters.
Yeah, something which probably we both can talk about it. Just before we turn on this, we were talking about we have different methods of achieving this. So the topic I'll talk about today, or at least we want to explore today, is how do you gain deep knowledge on a particular subject? Why kind of this thing came about is because I always know you as someone who has very deep knowledge in many things. So every time...
And no knowledge about many other things.
No, but every time when I feel stuck, right, about certain things, right?
Yeah.
First of all, of course, I'll Google.
Yeah.
Second, I'll ask Adrian.
Wow.
Yeah, it's Google. It's I feel that you actually give a much more interesting spin to it. Okay. While Google is pretty flat, you still have to kind of like search through the search results to pick. But many times it's like every time I get stuck, right? Then it's like, for example, the recent one I kind of can remember is like crypto, right? Cryptocurrency.
Oh yeah.
Was
that accurate in your?
Pretty accurate. I mean, it was
enough to know, right?
Enough. Not to be too over technical and so on, right?
Yeah.
And I do. So that's one thing, and I do know that, of course, when you are into something, right, you will go like deep, like all out into it, right? So, for example, like the 200 bags that you have,
Correction, just 198.
Yeah. Or your 600 lenses, or like.
And why you need 600 lenses?
Right.
The important. Actually, that might be my first answer. Is to know why.
Okay, so
to be fair, this is a question that I've never explored.
Yeah.
Like to me is that there's never I never measure how deep a knowledge, like how deep to go into a particular subject.
Okay.
Like to me is that I'll keep digging until like I run out of things to dig, if I care about something, that's what I do, right?
Okay, so
to me the why is important, like why, okay, first of all, like think about it, right? How deep is deep knowledge, right? Like,
okay,
when you say deep, what do you say?
Don't even talk about. Okay, to be fair, deep to you is deep, lah. Okay, deep, lah. I mean,
so we have different degrees of depth, right?
Okay, so don't even go to that level, lah. Okay, about deep or how deep it is. Let's start off with something very simple. Let's take a few steps back, right? And kind of help me to unpack, like what's the motivation behind. Like, if you choose a particular topic that you want to go deep, right? Or you want to understand a bit better, right? Help me to understand, like, why is there a need to go depth or deep in those things? Like, what's the motivation behind it? That's my first question, right?
Okay.
And the second question is, like, there's so many things that you can pick, right? But why you pick certain things?
Okay, let me think,
Let's start with the motivation first, like, why? For some people, they have a different way of expressing, right? But for you really go deep into certain things, lah.
Yeah, I remember someone commented on this behavioral pattern of mine a long time ago, and it was specifically to mention about to explicitly express how superfluous it is to go too deep into something.
Okay.
When, if it's knowledge that you can use in some practical way, right?
Yeah.
most of the time you don't have to go like, super deep lah. You just have to have enough understanding and enough to get you through the task that you're trying to accomplish, right? But for me is my relationship with things or subjects that I go deep into, right, is a bit beyond practical. All right, there's no.
Can you give an example, like a particular topic like one subject that you're super deep into it?
I don't know. What do you remember?
There's so many things. Okay. Like the one which I know that you can go endless about it, right?
Yeah.
Is conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So
to be fair, it's not. It might be under the general umbrella of conspiracy theory,
right?
But I don't consider the things that I look into particularly about conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Right. So, I guess for the audience benefit, when you say conspiracy theory, I'm assuming that you're talking about perhaps
who shot JFK, that kind of thing.
Those kind of things, right? Where there is really not much. There's not much you can do about the available information, except waiting for new research to unfold, right? So until then, a lot of people just come up with theories, lah. That's what it means, right? And conspiracy being in the category of maybe a bunch of people coming together to, coordinate and execute that particular plot or something.
Okay.
And hence you get the conspiracy theory, lah. Theory being, something you cannot confirm or you cannot deny, lah, right? So to me, those stories are much more about stories, lah. It's just interesting way to look at things. But what intrigues me usually is that those stories, if they have a particular data point that sticks out, that would make you question the official story, right? So there are so many big conspiracy theories that are still in the category of conspiracy theory, right? Like JFK or 9/11 or Roswell, those kind of stuff, right? But I'm at the point where if there's no new data points that you can gather from it, because after a while you don't get new data, but you get new theories, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like, is this theory interesting or not? It's kind of like Marvel, universe kind of. The theory, this works, that works. It's like after a while it gets boring, because you don't get new data points. But the stories that really intrigue me are ongoing stories.
Okay.
That
example.
Like example is the the Hunger Dryas. Okay, I'm just saying words that you don't even know right now, right? So I'll backtrack a little bit. So I'm trying to explain this theory about civilizations and the collapse of civilizations in ancient times, and ancient being anywhere between the pyramids timing, or at least to me they are not correct, right? But let's say 4000 BC to let's say 12,000 BC, right? So ancient civilizations being a storyline that we do not have evidence or do not have any legacy of information, right, to confirm or deny it, right? So so most people take it at face value, like if you don't find anything means they don't exist, lah. Then whatever you can find, you build the story around it, lah, right? So like I've always been the on the camp where I believe that there are things that we don't know enough about the past to deny, and there are a lot of new information that we're discovering about these storylines today that make me go back again and again to these so-called theories, right? And relook at them, and reassess how I feel about those new storylines, right? So the most recent one in memory that I've been telling people about is this discovery of the crater, this giant crater under Greenland, right? Which for those people who are starting to find that this is going to be like a crazy boring topic, right? Is that my hook for this right now is that this crater is part of a storyline where if it is true that a meteor of that size hit the Earth, right, and create this crater which is about 19 miles wide, is that it could be the origin story of the great floods that happen in all our ancient storylines, like in the Bible, in the even in a lot of mythical folklore, and in specifically in the Atlantic cultures, right, which is kind of Europe and North America, right, and that is significant because we've always considered this biblical story of flood, right, maybe something symbolic, right. There were evidences that we had rising and lowering of the sea throughout history, but none of it was dramatic enough for you to call it a flood that suddenly happened, right? But consider the possibility that if a meteor actually hit the north part of Earth, right, and that was covered in ice, right, and created so much heat that it melted so much water, right, and that could trigger this huge, melting and and flowing down of water, and would flood a lot of civilizations that were nearby, and that because there was so much water, right, it's quite easy to imagine how the water could have washed away most of the evidence if you think about it, right? If you have time and the resources to dig really deep into the ocean and and try and collect all the information, we might be able to form the picture again. But but it's not difficult to see, even if you run a giant pipe through your house, maybe there'll be a lot of little things that will disappear from it that you cannot trace back, right? So imagine those kind of storylines, right? When you get new evidence like this Greenland one was like maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, right? And it was right at the time when I was just listening to Joe Rogan talk to this journalist called Graham Hancock, who was talking about the possibility. So Graham Hancock is one of my favorite kind of like journalist writers who specifically likes this topic of, he calls it humanity is a species with amnesia. That means we are awakened, but we have forgotten the time before we awake,
right?
And what could have been possible, and we've forgotten it, and we are just focused on this.
This is what you call it, alternate history, is it?
Yes. Well, there are a couple of phrases that are a couple of what do you call it, labels that people put, like there is the ancient civilizations, there is the interventionist civilization or interventionist history where something came and interfered with the flow of civilization, and then things change from there. Then there's alternate history, but I would like to maybe, like, for me, I prefer to call it I don't really have a favorite lah, but the term of alternate history is very interesting to me, mainly because the idea of mainstream history to me has always been very flat and very uninspiring and generally very what's the word, ostriches burying their heads in the sand kind of thing, where they just refuse to listen. They're the establishment, so to speak, right? So I like the idea of alternative coming into the picture to offer a fresh perspective, not necessarily to dethrone or to replace mainstream history, but to give us points of discussion, right? To consider possibilities that some of these new data points are presenting, right? So, but I guess we are going pretty off topic about going deep into stuff, right?
So I mean, the very fact that the last 15 minutes or so, or 10 minutes or so, the terminologies that you use and so on already explain that you have much depth in and that's just, and we're just scratching the surface only, right?
Yeah,
on this
it'll take me 3 hours, right, to talk about this melting thing.
I mean, but why? I mean, why this topic, or like why certain topics? Why not certain topics and so on? And let's start with that. I mean, like why what intrigues you? I mean, why not, for example, like a history of fridges or like a dishwasher or but
well, if the information was available, I will probably get into it. I don't know, okay, good question. I think it's something that that, okay, now that I think about it, some things intrigue me more than others, mainly because there is potential for upheaval.
Okay. I don't know where this is going. But
Yeah. I think maybe there's another word that you would like to use here, which is anarchy, right?
Yes, correct.
So, like, I know I guess there are dictionary definitions of anarchy. There are, kind of like poetic users of the word, right? But in my case, I just simply don't like things that are standard, right? Like if there's something that is established and standard, I always kind of question it, or I always kind of like hope that someone would debunk it, if not myself.
Essentially, you you like to challenge establishments,
Yeah. I don't like someone to tell me what to do, obviously. I don't like someone to tell me what is real. Like I just need to investigate it for myself, right? And until I'm satisfied with what I found for myself, and if it aligns to the official story, that's fine, because I'm satisfied with it lah. Like, okay, fine, you guys won. I wasted my time looking into it, but usually it's not time wasted. That's what I like, about this going deep into something, right? Is that you always learn something. You always learn the parameters, or the kind of like the process of getting to a certain level of understanding of something.
Okay.
And even if you don't discover anything new, right, you at least discover something new about yourself as well, because the process itself is there's a lot of growth in the process, right? Because a lot of it is uncomfortable, a lot of it is exciting, some of it is very boring. Sometimes I'm just sitting through like hours and hours of like a podcast or a YouTube video, or like I bought endless books about some of these topics, and at some point you go like, man, this guy is jumping the shark already, then you like, you discover the boundaries that govern a particular topic, right?
So besides alternate histories, what other, I'm still trying to understand. I don't fully understand yet, so I'm not gonna let you go so easy. I still don't fully understand yet in terms of like number one, as in like what kind of topics, right? I mean, anarchy, whatever, not. But I also know that you also go very deep into things which I may not fully understand as well, like bags, guitars, and I mean, I don't think any of these things will create any upheaval, lah.
Yeah.
So
you're right.
Right. So it's not just these topics, right?
Or like songs I listen again and again and again for years.
So I'm just trying to understand actually what goes through that mind of yours, right? In terms of like what's the satisfaction, what's the motivation when you want to, in fact, even if you can recall, when did this kind of obsession start? How old were you? Let's go back a little bit of history. If you can remember, what were the first few things?
The earliest memory I have, of this kind of behavior, is pre-kindergarten, man.
Okay.
When I was about, kindergarten is like 5 or 6, right?
6, yeah.
3 or 4 maybe. Every day, I would spend the whole day doing arithmetic, mathematics, and all I really enjoyed doing was before my father goes to work, he'll put like a bunch of sums, like he'll write on this. Do you remember those?
No, I don't like maths.
Brown. No, those paper that they print as handouts for school. It was like they printed it out, and then you have to do in school work.
I don't know what school is. Sorry.
They call it. I think the word is stencil. Do you remember? Is it stencil?
Yeah, stencil.
Right?
Yeah, correct.
So stencil paper, So my mom was a school teacher, so we always had like a bunch of paper at home that I could use. We didn't have to buy like printing paper. Those A4 and all that. Those days it's not standard, but those stencil, right?
Yes.
So my father would put like.
So he literally writes.
Literally like 3 plus 4.
Oh, really?
Put, 4 plus minus, 4 minus 2. Every day, And I remembered, right, all day long. That's all I would do, and then he would come back in a late afternoon, and then he'll check, So I get a super kick out of getting really deep into it,
Is it? I'm just curious. Is it because that by completing it means you get your father's approval?
I don't know. Actually, I never thought about it that much, but right. I really think it was really just fun, for me. Like for me, it was something I like to do.
Okay.
And when I find something I like to do, I just didn't want to do anything else, you know. Same way it was when I picked up tennis.
Yeah.
You know, I would eat, sleep, drink, shit tennis. You know, I would sleep with my racket.
Yeah.
You know, like actually go hug it in bed kind of thing. You know, I would spend like hours in a day just, you know, getting used to the weight of the racket, how it swings. You know, I would do things with it, like I would carry cups and, I would flick at, insects or whatever. Like I wanted it to be part of me, you know. When I became obsessed with the game, right? I mean, I guess I'm using the word obsessed here because that's probably what it's sounding like to the audience now, right?
But to be fair, I don't think it's also, well, it can border obsession, but also the word I can think of is the Japanese word of shokunin, right? Mastery, right? So how much do you think that it is really mastery, or is it curiosity? You know, like I don't know much about like shokunin. All I didn't know is like, for example, like in order for you to get from point A to point B, sometimes you just need to do it 10 years, right?
Yeah.
You know, and some of them they do it. I feel there's some difference. Like some people they do it because it's like rite of passage. Like they have to do it, right? Like they have to like chop cucumbers, like one
carry
day,
bricks,
whatever, right? But look at the sun or whatever, not for years, right? Before they can actually do anything meaningful, right?
Yeah.
But to them, it's more of like, because I want to get there, so I have to go through this. Even I have to torture myself, never mind, the kind of thing, right? Because the end goal is what I want, right?
Yeah.
But for your case, I feel there's a bit different. For your case is that you do enjoy it, right?
Yes.
So there's like a joy to really wanting to do this. It's not because you just, it's not like I must, right? That's why I go through this pain, But for you, it's like you enjoy doing this, right?
Yeah. So there's no pain actually. Like okay, I think I want to highlight a bit of the difference with let's say the shokunin culture, right?
Yeah.
Like I have deep respect for the shokunin culture, but I also think that a very important component of the shokunin culture is to actually have a mentor, right? And it's not common, or at least in my life, right? Most of these so-called passions or even obsessions, right, were not scenarios that I either had a mentor or that I required a mentor. Right. Just for example, of course, if I had
but like tennis, how does that work?
If I had a coach, right? But I was doing stuff that was beyond just the coaching as well.
Okay.
That means things like I remember watching matches. In those days, you don't have YouTube where you can watch like hundreds of hours of tennis and learn from hundreds of YouTubers.
Just burn through VHS,
Yeah, I would record all the telecasts, matches, and then and I would just watch them again and again to the point where I know at every point who does what,
right.
And I watch them again and again just to, I think the word that we say is to absorb it to a level where it becomes subconscious to me. All right.
But all these things is like, it's, you look back, there's right now you can put in labels, right? But at that point in time, obviously it is. I mean, I'm not sure you didn't have much of the intellectual.
I didn't intellectualize it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just more like do it, right?
Yeah. And I like that every time let's say I watch a VHS of a match, right? Or whenever I'm just. I used to just tap the tennis ball against a wall in a house, it'll be like maybe like 6 feet away from me, It's hardly useful for tennis, but for me it's the growth of just uniting the tool, the instrument, the racket, right, with my hand and to feel the ball in that one, right?
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't realize how effective it was in training me to be a better tennis player.
Right.
For me, I just did it because while waiting for the time to go and play actual tennis, I want to do something tennis related, either watching a match, or hitting the wall, or reading through that one magazine that I could only afford. For the last 6 months,
So
I would go front to
cover?
back, cover to cover, until like every article I've read easily for 40 times or something, So to me is to be total immersion. I think the word I would use is I enjoy total immersion in things that I care about. You know, it was similar when I picked up golf. I was self-taught.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't go as far in golf as I did in tennis. It was later in my life, during my working life.
Yeah.
I was basically bored at work. You know.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you there for a while. Is it because of boredom?
Yes,
Yeah,
a lot of it is boredom.
Like for example, because both your parents, in the sense that most of the time they're out, right? They're teaching or whatever, not. So you get left all alone, and you know, you need to fill up time, lah. So is it because some of these things you pick it up, then along the way, you know, I'm just trying to figure out, right? At least like okay, what I'm trying to say.
I think in my youth, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't so much boredom.
Okay.
All right. In my young adult life, when I was already working and having to pay mortgages and stuff like that, right? It was about boredom and it was about purposelessness.
Okay.
When I was young, the purpose was very clear. I just had to get good at this, right? I just had to get good enough until I cannot get better, basically, right? And there was never a point where I was bored because there was always something I could do to just get better. But
not all kids are this way, is it?
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah. So the other curious thing I'm having is like, is it something which is just who you are, right? Or is it a skill that one can acquire? Like for example, let's say if kids are listening in today, they're probably going to be distracted with all the other things, right?
Yep.
But let's say if they want to mastery in terms of like piano or violin or drums or anything like that, right? You know, it's like, is it because they just like it, so they're just obsessed with it, or is it a skill that you think that they can pick it up?
I actually believe that everybody has this in them. It's whether they have the opportunity to pursue it or discover and then pursue it.
What conditions need to be in place for them to discover this, you think? Well, at least based on your experience.
I like to think that there is a fair bit of privilege in a sense that, like, if you talk about certain endeavors, let's say for example playing tennis or playing piano or something, right? I think the privilege of being able to afford those things and to be in an environment where those things are available to you is important, right? But that said, the lesson here is that it's not so much about the things that are available to you that matters, but are you able to explore or experiment enough, right, to find something that matters so much to you that it becomes literally your everything, or that's how you spend your 24 hours,
Right.
And I think while statistically it may appear that most people don't do that, like most people don't have something that they're particularly passionate or obsessed with, right? But if you really think about it, at some point in anybody's life, right, there will be something that they're obsessed about, right? And most of the time, it is probably a member of the opposite sex, or a member of, like some kind of infatuation with another person, or some kind of infatuation with a particular pop group, right?
Yeah.
So you know that everyone has that experience of obsession. It's what they channel that obsession towards.
But how do you sustain it? I'm sure. I remember those days where I was living with like a bunch of my cousins and so on, and all of them, they have different kind of hobbies, or at the time I thought it was hobbies, but like some of them, they would, like, I remember one of my cousins, she's like really into badminton players, especially some China, at the time. So she would, like, every newspaper article, she'll cut out their picture, she'll stick on it, then she'll collect all these things and so on, right? But after a while, it just dies off, right? But how like for your case, it feels that as though there's a certain sustenance to it. Like, how do you sustain, like, at least for like years, right?
I think this is where the universal truth of purpose matters, right? So, for example, right, let's say a teenage me, obsessed with becoming a good tennis player, and then let's say another teenage friend of mine, obsessed with a pop group, right? The key difference is that my obsession gives me a feeling of growth, and I'm actually learning something, all right? And I am able to pursue some kind of purpose, like, you know, like for example, like in tennis game, right? You know, you want to reach a point where you can, you know, hit a certain kind of shot, right? Or destroy your opponent in a particular kind of way, right? Whereas the other example is that you are almost completely at the mercy of the channels that feed you that obsession, right? So if you are able to keep buying the teenage magazines about that pop group, if you're able to afford all the cassettes and CDs that the pop group releases, if you're able to go to their concerts and all that, right? You know, at some point, right, you will find that it is just feeding a hunger that you have, but it does not really teach you or make you grow into something else, you know? If let's say your obsession with a pop group is for you to get to know them and then, you know, form another group with them, or, you know, like it's something where you can just take that as a start, but take it somewhere else, right? Where your own life, where there's growth in your own life, right? I don't think you're able to sustain anything like that.
So to a certain extent, so does that mean like, okay, so can I say that sustenance is actually motivated by when you talk about growth, because obviously at that point of time you wouldn't be able to intellectualize what growth is or whatever not lah. But the motivation behind it, or what keeps it going, is actually results. So for example, right, let's say if you were to you know, every day you hit the ball against the wall, whatever not, and then next thing you know, you start to play in a competition, whatever not, and then you win the competition, then you feel recognized, and then next thing you know, that, you know, results kind of like motivates results, and you keep on going and so on. So that kind of sustain it. While, for example, you talk about a pop group example, it kind of goes nowhere lah. I mean, you just kind of know more information about them, but there's no you don't grow as a person lah, right? So
because I've experienced both. I mean, we've probably experienced both, right? And why certain things just drop out of your life is because at some point it just becomes futile, you know. You know.
So I guess assume like, for example, like for your case, like at one point in time you just stopped playing tennis because any particular reason why you just stopped playing tennis?
I guess for me, life got in the way, lah. You know, I got a job, you know, and then I didn't have friends who were playing tennis. You know, to be fair, I am still a tennis player until today. Like if you ask me to play some game next week, I would play it. You know, I will play it in a way that still satisfies, you know, my interest in the game, lah. You know, it's just one of those bicycle things, lah. Like you never forget, or at least I reached a point in my game where I will never be at level 0 again. You know what I mean? Correct. You know, I'll always be able to play in a certain way as long as my body allows it, right? So, you know, the other thing is also, you know, the injuries over the years, you know, just made it less fun for me. But don't get me wrong, I still love the game, you know. If someone, you know, who has a game that is compatible with mine, next week I will play, you know, tomorrow I will play it, you know. So it's you know, it hasn't left me, lah, you know. Unlike let's say, for example, you know, like a pop star that I was obsessed with in terms of his or her music, you know. Some of them bring some memories, but you know, I'm no longer obsessing about them, lah. I'll be like, oh, that's nice, I remember used to like them, you know. But you know, but because I just think that because it didn't help me grow in a way that was used that I like, lah, you know.
So if I can kind of like sum it up, or not I'm summing up, but let's say, what advice would you give, right, for at this point in time, let's say a teenager who wants to excel in, let's say, hip hop dancing?
Okay.
Right? So how would you advise, if this person comes up to you and just say that, hey, I've got this interest, you know, I dabble in it, I think I'm kind of good at it, right? What advice would you give this person to that level where they are somewhat unbeatable, or at least they are outstanding in whatever they do?
I would become obsessive about
Yeah, but how
hip-hop, man.
Yeah, how do you what steps do you need to help this person put in place?
Okay, so for here, right, I want to maybe bring into the conversation, right, an observation lah, right.
Okay.
I realized that part of the reason why I had the hunger for certain topics or certain skills, right, in those days, right, is because they were actually not that easy to come by, right? So, example of tennis, right? If I watch a match on television, right, it was like maybe 4 times a year. You know what I mean? 5 times a year, right? If you're lucky, you get a small tournament. For some reason, they had nothing better to show you. They showed it, and then you saw it. And if you were lucky enough to have a tape on hand to record it, you had that on record, right? It's not like now you go to YouTube, you got a million hours of tennis to watch. Even those stuff that I used to record is now online, right? So for me, right, the obsession became something that had to be sustained also, like in a sense that it was there was always a cliffhanger for me, like I had to earn those things, so to speak, right? And I think the difference with today's generation is that they have so much abundance that it is very easy for them to just overlook it, so back to the example of the hip hop, that one, right? If this person is very serious on their off time, right, instead of playing video games or hanging out and doing other stuff, right, they can easily consume 1,000 hours of hip hop lessons and hip hop dancers that they admire, right, and just study over and over again until you absorb it totally, until you're so immersed in it, right, that you feel like you are doing it yourself, because I know you can get to that level. People will say that, some people who are teaching stuff, they will say, it's not the same as you yourself doing it. True, right? But until you get to do it yourself, right, a large dose of exposure to something also does something for you, right? And if you have enough of that single-minded purpose, right? So to me, it's actually single-minded purpose, right? If this matters to you, and you obsessively pursue it, right, you will get good at it somehow. At least that 10,000 hour rule, right? It's almost like that. And the difference is that the 10,000 hours now, right, the quality of the 10,000 hours that you can have, right, is like 10,000 times better than the quality of those hours that I got.
However, I don't really fully agree in the sense that, for example, there is also a possibility that someone, like for this boy who wants to learn hip hop, right, or at least be good at it, by watching like lots and lots of videos, correct? He may mistaken it as like I'm good at it because a lot of head knowledge. Right?
Yeah. So there is that danger for sure.
So there is like, I know already lah, right? And versus someone who is really out there, opposed as to previously before. I mean, for you, there was a lack of it, right? In terms of there was not much resource, so you kind of repeat the same thing again and again, the same videos, whatever not, and you supplement it with the actual tournaments. You go out there to play, you practice. You were under the sun and so on, right? But in today's context, I think a lot, especially for those who are very intellectually driven, not just by watching lots of videos, right? They sometimes can mistakenly, I know, because they can actually talk about it, all the moves, the whatever not, and so on, right?
That's true.
But nothing beats, for example, experiential, like going out there to get your face punched, right?
For sure. Well, I mean, it's something that's hard to advise, in a sense that, again, right, it really depends on how single-minded your purpose is, right? So the good thing is you can probably discover for yourself how much you really like, or do you just really like the idea that you are just a hip hop dancer, right? Because those who are really, really interested to be one, they would go out and find every opportunity they can to perform, to practice with others, to form groups, to video themselves and start a YouTube channel, right? There are like a lot of things you can do now, right? Way more than you have time in a day to do, right? And again, right, if your purpose is just so that you create the impression that you're one of those, that you can just Instagram yourself doing
exactly,
this, right? You know, like the
yeah.
idea, just perpetuating the idea rather than living that idea, right? If that is your purpose, it's very easy to fake it, you know, and I think a lot of people do that, right? But you know, it's probably not going to be fulfilling, like you're probably not going to be happy, like, you know. I think
So to a certain extent, isn't it? Because the barrier now is because of social media and all these things, right? Which is currently happening. I mean, this just came to my mind. Like, because people just want to fake it, right? You know, they can just dress it up, whatever, then just take some nice pictures and then just kind of say that, you know, off to my hip hop training or whatever, not right? And then get like 1,000 of likes or whatever, stuff like that, right? And it's kind of like not doing the real thing.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the bar has been set so low that if someone who is really obsessed old school way, like how you did it, right? You know, it's not about just watching videos or whatever. Not you know, this is part of it, but also going out there, you know, you know, just joining competitions and then you know, sparring with other people, you know, getting a mentor. You know, getting a face punched or whatever, and so on, just going out there, getting rejected and all these things and so on, would immediately get this person, you know, much more, I should say, more mastery compared to someone who has watched like thousands of YouTube videos.
I think it's what is happening now to me, to my observation, what's happening now, right? Especially with the younger generation, right? Is the term that I can think of now is the Instagramization of life. Right. The loose description being that, you know, you cut out the bits that are not so interesting and not so painful, and you just highlight the bits that are, you know, worth likes, right? And everyone does it, you know. We all, you know, to some capacity, but I guess maybe a younger, less mature mind might think that life itself should be that way, that you should live a pain-free life, that you should, you know, that your life has to be full of highlights and features and, you know, Instagrammable moments, you know. But you know, but then having to master something is a very bitter reality because there are so many factors, right? In getting good at something, in having substance, right? I think substance is the operating word here, that for you to have actual substance, it requires a fair bit of effort, a fair bit of heartaches, you know, a lot of pain for sure, you know. And, you know, perhaps it is easier now than ever to just accept that, you know, maybe the best life that you can get is just one that's Instagrammable, you know, and not one that is truly substantial, you know. And to that, you know, in view of that, I feel that maybe it is actually more difficult now for people to have mastery.
No, I think it's more easy at this point.
I mean, the bar for entry is easier. But I think, you know, I mean, consider another thing, right? If you look on YouTube and you look on Instagram, you know, and on top of people having true substance who are showing off what they are doing, they are also editing it in such a way that it looks like all they are doing is really epic stuff, right?
True.
Sometimes it's very hard for a young mind to look at it and say, how am I, you know, like I'm going to be like that, right? It's hard. They look at it, they go like, oh man, you know, this is a whole level that I cannot imagine.
With me, someone that we both know, who's very young, right? I mean, he's like 7 years old. You know, who is having that problem, right? Because this person has been consuming YouTube all his life, right? Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah. So this kid I know, he's a really smart kid. You know, talented in some ways. Very very intelligent, more than anything, and he learns so much from YouTube. And he's obsessed with it, basically, as most kids are, to be fair. He's not the only one, right? But the fact that he has learned so much from YouTube and has seen so much on YouTube, that he starts to think that life is like the YouTube he sees, right? So, like, for example, if he watches someone play a game, Minecraft or something, right? that he can learn those things, right? Because he can play the game and do it, right? But then when he watches someone who does, let's say, playing the piano, right? And then he tries to play the piano and he sounds nothing like that, right? And his reaction would be like, oh, I can't do this. Never mind, I'll just watch it. I'll just ask someone else to do it for me. So it's very funny because when he goes for piano lessons, instead of going there to learn and get better at a song, he would go there and ask his teacher to play songs to entertain him, because he was trying to live out what he sees on YouTube.
Interesting.
And I don't think he is a case of exception. I think it's probably very common with the young now, where they are not particularly good at anything yet, right? When you're young, you still have a lot to learn, right? The striving hasn't begun, right? But because they consume so much of an experience where you don't see the striving, you don't see the failures, you don't see the heartaches, and they are not even made known to you. A lot of these YouTubers, right?
Sure.
They pretend that, oh, I'm the shit, right? But they don't show you like the bad takes, they don't show you the difficulties and the challenges, right? Sometimes they do it for dramatic reasons, but but because it is not common for people to consume that side of the storyline, right? Then they get this fake reality that wow, all these people are doing stuff that.
So for this kid, if you can intervene, how would you intervene?
I would hold this kid's hand through a particular learning process, right? And I would gather people around this kid, right, to support the process, because the most important thing for growth in a child, right, I think, right, is the feeling of validation they get from the people who are most important to them, right? So if I alone take this kid to, let's say, to learn tennis or something, right? But no one else in the house cares about it, it's not going to work.
Interesting.
Because this kid will only get validation from me. In fact, most of the time he won't. Most of the time he'll get a beating from me, right?
I can imagine the reason of the why the tennis thing, because I know that your dad's a tennis player. So at home, right, there is this culture as well. This is so that, like you say, so if a coach will be very good at teaching this person, but at home, if no one does it or no
one cares and no one supports it, like even for me, it's like I hit the ball against the wall, it's like freaking filled with black dots all over, like I'm dirtying the walls, I'm breaking lamps on the ceiling, I'm playing a videotape over and over again until it's until the VHS spoils, right?
Your dad understands, right?
Yeah, but my dad encourages that, like for him is that's how they show support. And then every evening we'll go somewhere and play, and if he'll always play with me first, like for me is the immersion that I got, right, was beyond just me, it's really not just on my own, you see. Whereas a lot of kids these days, they are probably left alone to their own devices, right? It's just them and the iPad, right? And it's hard to find your purpose that way, I think, I think at least one other person in your life has to be that one. It can't be just a coach. And it can't just be your teacher teaching you, right? But someone who is spending your time off,
a support group, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? Someone that you're doing it for, So that's what I mean by the purpose and the why, Because if this kid has no reason to get good at piano, right? And we all know that as a child, you're not going to get good as a pianist because you think that you're going to be the best pianist in the world, right? It's not natural for a kid to have that vision, right?
Yes,
most of the time you're playing it because you play a song, you make someone happy. You play at a concert, you make more people happy, right?
Very very simple.
Yeah, it's very natural actually, right? Because you want to feel that you are part of a community, right? A tribe, right? That's naturally how humans grow, right? You're part of a circle, right? So with this kid, I would not just hold the hand through the early stages to encourage them when things are difficult, because it's always difficult, right, to get good at something. But I would highly encourage that the parents or the siblings or even at worst, their best friends or something at school or something, right? Where they can do it together and kind of grow together. Because going at it alone is very rare for a kid to get that good, right? I mean, look at all the top athletes in the world, right? They didn't do it on their own, It was always an uncle, right? Sure. It's always then or maybe a mentor who was successful before comes back to his hometown and then, and imparts more knowledge, right? You are never an island in this sense, right? You're always a continuation of something. So to have that kind of potential success, there has to be a continuation, And so I would encourage that they find that continuation. If you don't have parents who are supportive, right? Then if this still really matters to you, even without the support, then find the people who would support it, Find a group, find the friends, find a teacher, find maybe not just the teacher, but maybe find more supporters in a sense, right? So that they can help you grow into something that feels like you're growing, because like earlier when you were saying that all those little things that I did to get better at the game, right? It wasn't that I was it didn't take until the point where I won a tournament or I became a national rank player or something for it to matter.
Understand.
It might even be as simple as I've been trying this freaking shot for so long, and finally I could do it, and I could repeatedly do it. To me, those things matter even more. Like I could do a trick shot. I could do something that people went, wow, like shit, man, how can you do something like that? Like those things. The craft, the art of it, right, became my motivation. That I could pull off tricks that that would give me an advantage, right? So it's not necessarily always the big wins that matter. It's just putting in place, right, your opportunities for small wins.
Interesting.
And to feel that there is that growth.
Okay.
And then when you have that growth, you can pile it on now, right? And I think this reality is also the same with things that I'm obsessed about that is not immediately obvious about this, right? Like, for example, bags or lenses or earphones, right? Where it gets to a point where I'm thinking, okay, how do I know more about how how to use a particular kind of bag? Why do they make it a certain way, right? Why do they use this instead of that, right? It is stuff that other people have put a lot of thought into, and I want to know why, And for me, is when I know more, when I know why, and when I can compare it to other people doing other things, in their bag designs or in their lens designs, right? When I know more of that, right, I make better decisions about the ones that I use.
Understand.
So it's it's just the little wins, I think.
Okay.
Right? Having those opportunities to know that, this is why it's done this way.
Right.
This is how I can do it this way, right? And those things kind of feed into that obsession, that it's kind of like putting yourself, put the carrot in front of you kind of thing. Okay, what if I do this, right? What if I try this? How is that going to affect it?
Okay.
And I think that exploration itself is that, going deep that you think about, right?
Understand.
For me is I explore because for one now is I do not like to be bored.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, exploration is kind of like how it's kind of like my hobby, right? I can be exploring something today and something else tomorrow, but it is always some kind of exploration. And with exploration comes knowledge, and with knowledge comes growth, I think, right? And with growth comes the appreciation for the exploration, because if you get good at something, right, when you're able to see something deep, it becomes way more interesting than when something is completely new to you. I'm sure you have experienced that, right? I have, for example, you sign up for this running clinic, right?
Yeah.
Who think I never thought for my whole life, right, there's someone need to teach me how to run.
Yeah.
Right? Think about it, right?
Yeah.
All our lives, right? No one has ever said, oh, you better go and take some lessons, pay someone to teach you how to run. That's ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
From my upbringing, right? But now I think about it, hell, I want to learn how to run, you know. I want to know what someone who's good at running can tell me about running,
Yeah.
right? Even though I've done it all my life, you know. I would just as well also sign up for something like, you know, how to sit,
Yeah.
right? You know, things that you never think about, right? How to walk, you know. Is there a better way to shower, all right? Or is there a better way to eat your food, right? You know, but there are things that I think if someone has done the work to get to a point where
Yeah.
it seems ridiculously expertly, right? Then maybe it's worth learning something from, you know, because I think that is where we push the boundaries of everything, right?
Interesting.
It is the people who just push it to the edge, to the point where you think there's nothing left to push, right? And they push past it, right?
Okay.
And then suddenly the whole meaning of what you've been doing before completely changes, you know?
Interesting.
So to me, that is very exciting, right? It's back to the first story about the whole alternate history thing, right?
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that, you know, you've pushed it this far, right? It's like, oh, after a while, it's all theories and
Correct.
storylines, and then like, you know, things just get murky, right?
Yeah.
And then boom, you have something new, right? Because there were people who kept, you know, digging, kept knocking on the stones, and then they pushed past that line, right?
Yeah.
And they suddenly
There's new discovering
something that turns everything around, you know. You know, I mean, that is a completely different podcast and it has to be done in 3 hours, lah, you know. But this whole, I mean, guys, if you guys are still with us, you know, go and look up the Hunger Dryas theory.
How do you spell it?
Hunger Dryas as in hunger.
Yeah.
Sorry, not hunger, sorry. Younger Dryas.
Yeah.
Younger as in younger than me.
Yeah.
Dryas, Dryas, right?
Right.
So Younger Dryas is actually a period in history, somewhere around 11,000 BC at the beginning and 1,000 years later, where we had two very, very sudden change in the Earth's temperature, right? And nobody knows why. Nobody could explain it why.
Right.
So again, so it becomes a theory, right?
Okay.
So, you know, and so far the theory that I think is winning the race right now is that it's caused by meteors that hit the Earth, right? Ones that caused a massive heating, and then another one that caused a massive ice age.
Interesting.
Right? And this period, the bookends of this period, the start and the end, right, kind of marks a couple of marks a time in our history where a couple of very interesting discoveries are also aligned to, you know, it's related to the building of the pyramids, related to what Plato said about Atlantis. It's related to some of the geological anomalies that we find in these parts of the world. It's related to a few new discoveries of monolithic sites that, monolithic being like some ancient buildings, basically, right? Giant buildings, right? That coincide with this time that were like, you know, one of them is in Turkey where it was suddenly abandoned and we all don't know why, but we can date it because they deliberately buried their city, you know,
Right.
you know, and you have to wonder why people would do crazy shit like that, right? And you know, so there's still a lot more to discover.
Okay.
But I think this whole Greenland crater thing has just put a massive poured a lot of fuel into this thing, you know.
Okay.
And then people should, you know, and I think people are going to pursue it more, you know, to try and look or maybe relook at the evidence that we have, right?
Okay.
And kind of like put this thing together. And to me, that's way more interesting, way more fascinating because it informs us about, us as a human race, right? It informs us about a past that maybe we've forgotten or that we are trying to ignore, you know? And more importantly, right, it highlights to me, right, the selfishness of establishment, which is why I generally have a distrust of establishment.
I've got to stop you here because
it's going to be like 4 hours more, right?
4 hours more. Because there's a lot of I think if we dig deeper, it'll be quite interesting to kind of like figure out actually, you know, the deeper psyche of it, why, you know.
We didn't even get a chance to talk to you about going deep into something, man.
Maybe that's part 2 lah, maybe.
Okay,
part 2. So, in closing, I've got 2 questions to ask you. One would be, what is your current obsession? Let's start off with that first. I mean, you don't have to go deep into it at this point in time. But is there anything currently right now you are or going to be obsessed about?
I am currently obsessed about hiking.
Interesting.
Okay. So so I call it long walks in nature lah. So I'm currently obsessed with it. And
can you share with the viewers this particular app that you were raving about?
Oh yeah, I love this app called All Trails. It's kind of like a platform for hikers to share their experiences and to mark out maps and routes of hikes that they've done. A lot of them are quite famous ones, are well-known ones.
Yeah.
But it allows people a chance to chime in, like what they think of it, to share some pictures of the trail, the way they experience the trail,
This is
to rate
across
it.
the world, including Malaysia.
Yeah, across the world. So it's I mean, I'm just using the free version. There's a pro version where you can get way more details.
Wow.
So for people, very serious hikers, I guess the information is very useful. I mean, I've not used it for any kind of like off the grid stuff lah. I'm not that good yet. I'm just
Not yet lah.
I'm just at the beginning of it lah.
Not yet.
So it's fast becoming the replacement for the things that I had on my bucket list, and now they are mostly just long walks. So I would say that would be it.
Okay.
There are smaller ones which are not worth mentioning for now. So
Okay. And the closing question is: did you discover anything about yourself today from this discussion?
I actually never thought that I would be able to answer that question about what would I say to a teenage, like a young person, right, who might want to get good at something. Because like the example I gave today, which is tennis, we didn't get to talk much about my obsession and understanding of bags, specifically backpacks and hiking gear and all that. Or lenses, which of course as a film professional I know a lot about, but especially tennis, which I actually consider myself to be good at it, but I'm not great at it. Like I'm not a professional. I'm nowhere close to being professional. I'm nowhere even nearly as successful as a lot of my peers, as a tennis player. But I know as far as competency is concerned, I know I have reached a very high level in competency of tennis, right? It's just that perhaps I'm just not as well endowed as an athlete, right? That I didn't have the results that would take me to the highest levels of tennis lah. But are we good enough at it, right? But never good enough at it for me to be able to inspire someone younger to say, oh, I want to be just like him. Actually, so what I realized is that maybe my journey for tennis, right, is much more similar to the journey of most people who want to get good at something, but not to be the best in the world at something.
Right.
Okay. And I thought that what I said about them having support group and all that, are just things that while they were present in my life, they were not the ideal ones that would take me to the top level of the game lah. Like my father was a social tennis player, right? My mom was a social tennis player, right? My coach was a social tennis player, right? None of them ever played ATP. None of them ever became a professional athlete. None of them understood nutrition. None of them understood sports science, right? But if you are in a position where these factors are available to you, right? Your journey can be longer and further.
Yeah, I understand.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Understand.
But it doesn't change the fact that they need to be present, regardless. And if you're just doing it on your own, right, you'll never really achieve anything much more than your own bubble, basically, right? And honestly, watching YouTube, it just satisfies yourself intellectually, right? You still need to be able to do it. to get good at something, to practice it, you know. And it's the same for any craft, you know, whether
Right.
it's music or filming or, you know, or hiking or walking or running, right?
Yeah,
Right?
understand.
You know, you have to be able to do it to get better, right? The 10,000 hours is 10,000 hours, like, you know, whether you like it or not, right?
Okay.
And so I hope that was useful, you know. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what I would
Interesting.
you know, tell people, you know, who might want to get far into something or get deep into something.
Okay, so that's the end of today's podcast. We talked about how to get deep into certain subjects. We talk about younger dryers. We talk about tennis. We talk about you know,
Alternate history.
alternate histories, and so on. I'm not too sure how we're gonna
Later,
label.
I'll tell you about the Sphinx and why it was not built by the Pharaoh Ramses.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm gonna end it today here. I'm not too sure how we're gonna label this, but I thought there are a few things that's quite interesting. So yeah, that's the end of today's episode. You can reach out. You can get us, subscribe to us on all available podcasts out there. We're also available on YouTube. Subscribe to us, turn on notification, and that's about it. The stories we tell ourselves episode. I don't know what episode is this, but yep, that's it.
That's it. Ciao.